I don't remember much about how I got here. The last thing I recall was the sterile hum of the cryo chamber cooling me down, shutting my body off from the world. Then nothing. Now, the first thing I feel is cold, a cold so absolute that it burns. The chill creeps into my bones and sinks deep, like the icy fingers of space itself reaching inside me. I open my eyes, but the darkness presses heavy. No stars, no sun, only a faint blue glow leaking through thick ice. Europa, Jupiter's moon. We're buried beneath a kilometer of frozen ocean, trapped in a hidden vault far away from the war that destroyed our home. Earth is dead, a cinder drifting silently in the void. The human race, or what's left of it, slipped beneath Europa's ice to survive. I'm one of the last, and I just woke up. The air smells stale and recycled, mechanical, with a faint hint of ozone from the life support systems still humming somewhere nearby. The metal walls around me gleam faintly, frost collecting on the edges, tiny crystals sparkling under dim emergency lighting. The place smells like an old warship's grave, a sanctuary for the last ghosts of humanity. I sit up slowly, muscles stiff from centuries of frozen stasis. My body aches, but the pain is alive, a reminder that I'm real, that I'm back. I check my pulse with a trembling hand. It's steady, weak, but stubborn. A beat that says, "You're not done yet." A soft hiss comes from a panel on the wall, then a mechanical voice cracks through the silence. Cryostatus, inactive. Vital signs, stable. Oxygen level, 97%. Welcome back. Subject K, 47. I bite back a shudder. The name feels cold and clinical, like a number on a list. But it's mine. I'm K, 47. The K stands for Krieger, German for warrior. Fitting, considering what I've been through and what I've been made for. The memory comes rushing back in flashes. The invasion, the burning skies, the screams. The Alari came like a plague from the stars. Blue-skinned, lithe, and merciless, they descended upon Earth with weapons that shattered our cities and minds alike. They called us primitive, a failed species too violent to survive. And so they tried to wipe us out. But they were wrong. Some of us escaped, the ones who could think ahead, who dared to hide beneath the ice of Europa, under the watchful eyes of their fleets. We took the last of Earth's remaining ships and fled, carrying the future of humanity in stasis pods like this one. I stand and take a deep breath, feeling the hum of the station beneath my feet. It's been my home, my tomb, my cradle for over 300 years. Outside, Europa's frozen ocean stretches endlessly, a wall of ice separating us from the universe above. The surface crackles faintly as tidal forces from Jupiter pull at it, a reminder that we are trapped, yet alive. I move to a viewport and look out. The blue-gray ice dominates the horizon, cracked in places where heat from the interior seeps through. Above the ice, Jupiter looms enormous, a swirling gas giant painted with bands of storm and fury. Its massive shadow stretches across the moon's surface, a reminder of the colossal forces that shape this prison and, maybe, our salvation. For a moment, I let myself imagine Earth. The green forests, the blue oceans, the cities bustling with life, all gone. Vaporized by Alari plasma storms and orbital bombardments. The memory feels like a ghost burning behind my eyes. But that's the past. The present is cold, dark, silent. A chime interrupts my thoughts. The station's AI, known as Athena, has activated fully. Her voice is calm, almost soothing, but beneath the calm lies a steel edge of purpose. Welcome back, K-47. You have been in stasis for 312 years, 5 months, and 17 days. The cryo systems maintained your vitals, but the mission has resumed. Please proceed to the command center for briefing. I hesitate. Athena, what's happened out there? The last report I had was the fall of New Berlin. Silence. Then the AI responds. The Alari occupation continues, but the war has reached a new phase. Our hidden colonies have survived and are preparing to strike back. You are part of the Warborn Protocol, humanity's last hope. Warborn Protocol. I remember the name from training. A program designed to engineer super soldiers, humans who could endure the coldest voids, the fiercest battles. Warriors enhanced through bioengineering and cybernetics, frozen until the moment the galaxy needed them again. That moment is now. I grab my gear from the rack, a reinforced combat suit, layered with nanofiber armor and adaptive camouflage. It still fits perfectly, as if I never aged. Because I didn't. As I walk down the long corridors, I pass others waking up, their eyes wide with the same mix of confusion and purpose. We are the last survivors, but also the last defenders. Athena guides us smoothly, her digital voice lighting the path. The command center is a cavernous room filled with holographic displays and star charts. At its center stands Commander Lyra Voss, a fierce woman with steel-gray eyes that have seen more battles than I can count. She steps forward as I enter, nodding curtly. K-47, welcome back. We've been waiting for you. What's the situation? I ask, voice rough. The Alari have consolidated control over the Sol system. Earth is lost, but not forgotten. We have built new homes here, beneath Europa's ice, in Titan's methane seas, and even on the asteroids of the belt. We have been building an arsenal in secret, preparing for the day we take back what's ours. She gestures to a 3D map of the Jovian system, dotted with red markers, Alari outposts, supply lines, and fleet positions. Our forces are limited, but we have one advantage: surprise. The Alari believe humanity extinct. They have grown complacent. I let that sink in. The galaxy thinks we're dead. We're the ghosts in the machine, the whispers in the dark, the last human light still burning beneath the ice. We strike soon. I ask, tomorrow. The Woolborn protocol activates at 0600 hours. You'll be leading the first wave. I swallow hard. It's a heavy burden to bear, but it's the only choice. Either we fight, or we vanish into history's dust. As I prepare for what's coming, memories flood back. The family's lost, the city's razed, the screams of a dying planet. But also hope. Hope forged in ice, in blood, in silence. I step into the airlock. Outside, the vacuum waits, the cold waits, the war waits, and I am ready, because we are human, and humanity never dies. The cold of Europa's vault fades slowly, replaced by a creeping ache in my muscles and a storm in my mind. I sit alone in my quarters, a sparse room filled with tech and memories, and let the ghosts come, because that's all we have left now. Memories. Memories of Earth. The last living fragments of a planet scorched from the galaxy's map, like a name erased from a ledger. And the faces that haunt me, the blue-skinned Alari. I've never been able to forget their faces. They're not like the monsters we told ourselves about back when we first saw their ships. No, the Alari are almost beautiful, tall and slender. Their skin is shimmering pale blue that catches light like polished glass. Their eyes are deep pools of indigo, seeming to pierce through you, to weigh your soul. Their expressions are calm, but cold, as if they see all life as fragile insects to be crushed or preserved for study. When they came to Earth, they didn't roar like an invading army. They came like a silent storm. I was 19. I remember standing in the streets of New Berlin, watching the sky darken with their ships. The news had been warning us for weeks: alien fleets detected near Mars orbit. Diplomatic talks fail with Alari delegation, military alert raised. But none of us believed they would come for Earth. Not like that. The first strike was surgical, a precision strike against military installations, satellite arrays, and communication hubs. Then the bombardments began. Plasma storms that melted skyscrapers and boiled oceans. Cities burned under the relentless heat of their weapons. Our militaries fought back with everything they had, but it was like trying to stop a tsunami with bare hands. Our tanks, planes, even orbital weapons were no match for their technology. The Alari used bioengineered drones and ships that moved faster than light, with defenses that repelled our missiles like raindrops. I remember the panic, the chaos, people running through streets with no place to hide, families torn apart, governments collapsing in weeks. The United Earth Council declared a global emergency and tried to organize a resistance, but the truth was brutal. We were outmatched, outgunned, and outsmarted. I saw my hometown fall, the places where I grew up, my school, my home, the park where I played as a child, all ash and rubble. My family was scattered. I lost my parents in the initial wave of attacks. My little sister was taken by the Alari. To what purpose? I still don't know. But the thing that cuts the deepest is what came after the fighting. The occupation. The Alari didn't just conquer Earth. They tried to erase it. Using terraforming machines, they altered the atmosphere, purged the soil, and sterilized the waters. The planet that birthed humanity was being turned into a lifeless rock, a warning to anyone who dared defy them. They called us primitive, violent, unworthy of the stars. I hate that, but they underestimated something fundamental about humanity: our will to survive. In the face of annihilation, pockets of resistance formed. We scavenged what ships and technology we could find, slipping away under cover of night. We hid in caves and underground bunkers, even beneath the ice of Europa. I was recruited into a secret program known only as the Warborn Protocol. The Warborn were humanity's answer to extinction, soldiers bioengineered to endure the harshest environments, to fight with enhanced reflexes, to survive what would kill normal humans. We were given cybernetic implants to improve our vision, strength, and healing. Our bodies were altered to resist radiation and extreme cold. I volunteered. I wanted to fight back, to take the war to the Alari. But even with our enhancements, the cost was high. The process was excruciating. I lost parts of who I was, memories, emotions, even the simple comforts of warmth and sleep. For years, I was frozen in stasis, waiting for the day I would be needed. That day is now. I close my eyes and remember the last time I saw Earth from orbit, the blue marble shrinking beneath me as we fled for Europa's icy embrace. I swore I would return, not as a victim, but as a warrior. The AI Athena's voice pulls me back from the past. Commander Voss requests your presence in the briefing room. I rise, still feeling the ghost of the cold in my veins, and make my way through the station's winding halls. The briefing room is filled with the other Warborn, men and women like me, each carrying their own stories of loss and hope. Commander Voss stands at the front, her eyes sharp and unyielding. We are the last of humanity's warriors, she begins. The Alari believe we are extinct, a species wiped from existence. That arrogance is their weakness. She gestures to a hollow map of the Jovian system, highlighting the Alari supply routes and outposts. Our intelligence shows they have grown complacent. Their fleets have thinned as they focus on consolidating their control over the inner systems. But now, we strike. The room hums with a mixture of tension and determination. We have waited too long in the shadows. It is time to remind the galaxy what humanity is capable of. A murmur runs through the room. I feel it too, the fire returning to my veins. For all our losses, we still fight, not just for ourselves, but for the memory of Earth, for the future of our children, wherever they may be. After the briefing, I retreat to my quarters again, staring out the viewport at the swirling storms of Jupiter. The moon beneath me, cold and silent, holds our sanctuary. But soon, it will be the launch pad for our war. I run my hand over the tattoo on my arm, a phoenix rising from ashes, the symbol of the Warborn. It is a reminder that even in destruction, life finds a way to rise again. The Alari may have broken our planet, but they have not broken us. I will carry the long memory of Earth, the blood, the fire, the screams, into the heart of the enemy's empire. Because this war is not just for survival, it is for revenge, and humanity is just getting started. The moment the hatch sealed behind me, the cold grip of Europa's vault loosened just a little. It was a small mercy, but enough to remind me I was alive, really alive, and that the fight was just beginning. The command center was a hive of activity, alive with the low hum of servers and the flicker of hollow screens. Athena's voice floated through the room, smooth and precise, giving updates and coordinating teams. Her presence was constant, like a guardian angel made of code and circuits. But beneath the surface, I knew Athena was more than an AI. She was a relic of Earth's last desperate days, a repository of memories and secrets that stretched far beyond any of us. I sat at the edge of the table, listening as Commander Voss outlined the next phase of our operation. We weren't just soldiers. We were part of a plan designed to turn the tide of the war. Phase 1, infiltration, she said, pointing at a map of the Jovian moons. We insert small teams onto the Alari's command station orbiting Callisto. Their communications hub is vital. Cutting it will blind their fleet. A low murmur ran through the room. The Alari's command station wasn't just a fortress. It was a symbol. Capturing or destroying it would be a message that humanity was back, that we still had teeth. Voss looked directly at me. K-47. You will lead the infiltration team. I felt the weight of that responsibility settle over me like armor. Years of training, of waking and waiting, led to this moment. The team assembled quickly, specialists in stealth, sabotage, and close combat. I studied their faces carefully. They were as scarred and determined as I was. Each carried the weight of their own losses, their own memories of Earth's fall. As we prepared to board the shuttle, Athena's voice came through my comms, calm but tinged with something almost Human, K-47. You should know. There is a reason this mission is so critical. The command station is rumored to contain an ancient artifact, a device of unknown origin that the Alari guard jealously. It could change the course of the war. I frowned. An artifact? What kind of artifact? There is little data, but old Earth legends spoke of powerful technology left behind by an ancient civilization, something called the Gray Mind. If it exists, it could be a game changer. The Gray Mind. The name sent a chill through me. Stories from my childhood spoke of a vast intelligence buried deep beneath Earth's crust, a collective consciousness rumored to wield unimaginable power. Many thought it was myth. Now it seemed the Alari might have found it first. I glanced at my team, noting the tension in their jaws. No one said it out loud, but we all knew what was at stake. The shuttle's engines rumbled as we launched from Europa, hurtling toward Callisto's orbit. The view outside was breathtaking. Jupiter's swirling storms spinning beneath us, the black void stretching endlessly in every direction. The moons of the Jovian system drifted by, silent witnesses to our desperate gambit. As we approached the Alari station, Athena guided us through the docking protocols. The massive structure loomed ahead, a fortress of shimmering blue metal, alive with pulsing lights and guarded by drones. We slipped inside through a maintenance shaft, cloaked in stealth technology. The air inside was sterile, cold, and thick with the hum of alien machines. The corridor stretched out before us like the spine of a great beast. Every step echoed loudly in the silence. I could feel the eyes of the station on us, unseen sensors scanning, waiting. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and a soft voice whispered through the comms. "Welcome, humans." The voice was synthetic but laced with amusement. Athena's voice flickered in response. Unknown signal detected. Source: Station Central AI. Possible countermeasures active. My heart pounded. The Alari station was alive not just with machines, but with a consciousness. Stay alert. I ordered the team, raising my weapon. We're not alone here. We moved cautiously, cutting through security systems and bypassing traps. The deeper we went, the more we felt the station's presence, as if it were watching, learning, adapting. In one chamber, we found a wall covered in strange glyphs, symbols that pulsed with a soft blue light. Athena analyzed them quickly. "These are not Alari," she said quietly. "They predate their technology by millennia. This station was built on the ruins of an older civilization." The realization hit me like a blow. The Gravemind was real. The Alari were not just invaders. They were scavengers, digging through the relics of a lost galactic empire. As we pushed forward, I felt a growing sense of unease. The station seemed to pulse with a strange energy, and the whispers in the comms grew louder. Then, we reached the core. The chamber was enormous, a cathedral of light and metal. At its center floated a crystalline structure, glowing with an eerie blue light. The Gravemind. It was alive. As I approached, the crystal pulsed, sending waves of images and emotions crashing through my mind. Memories not my own, ancient and vast. I saw worlds rising and falling, civilizations born and destroyed. I felt the pain of 1,000 lost souls, trapped in a digital purgatory. The Gray Mind spoke, not with words, but with thoughts. "You are the last of your kind. Why do you seek me?" I swallowed hard, struggling to focus. "We seek to survive, to fight, to reclaim our place in the stars." There was a long silence. Then a surge of energy filled the room. The Gravemind's light flared, and I felt a connection, a bridge between human and machine, past and present. "You carry the fire of your ancestors," it said, "but the war you fight is not only with others, it is with yourselves." The message was cryptic, but I understood. To defeat the Alari, we must become more than soldiers. We must become something new. Suddenly, alarms blared. The station was waking up, defenses activating. We had been discovered. I barked orders. "Fall back. Extraction point. Now." The team moved swiftly, fighting off waves of drones as we raced through the corridors. The Gravemind's light faded behind us, but its presence lingered in my mind. Back on the shuttle, heart pounding, I looked at my team. We were alive, but the mission had only just begun. The Gravemind was a key, a mystery that could unlock humanity's future or destroy it. And the war was far from over. As Jupiter's storms raged outside, I made a silent vow. We would uncover the secrets buried in the stars, no matter the cost. Because humanity's story was far from finished. The shuttle's engines throbbed beneath us as we punched through Callisto's thin atmosphere. the cold, gray surface looming large outside the viewport. After the frantic extraction from the Alari command station, the tension in the cabin was thick enough to cut with a knife. We'd survived the impossible, but the cost was already clear. We were running out of time, and the grave mine's cryptic warnings weighed heavily on my mind. I sat rigid in the pilot's seat, scanning the mission data over and over, trying to piece together what the grave mind had meant by "the war you fight is not only with others, it is with yourselves." Was it a warning about the Alari? About ourselves? Or something even darker lurking within humanity? We were heading for the last bastion of human resistance in the Jovian system, a sprawling station called Fort Helios, perched on the edge of the asteroid belt. Fort Helios was a melting pot of humanity's fractured remnants, a fragile coalition of soldiers, scientists, and refugees clinging to hope. The moment we docked, I felt the weight of history settle over me. Fort Helios was more than a military outpost. It was the heart of the shattered alliances that had kept humanity alive. But alliances forged in desperation were brittle, and the cracks were beginning to show. Commander Voss was waiting on the landing platform, her sharp eyes flicking over our team as we disembarked. She didn't waste time with greetings. "We have much to discuss," she said, her voice steady but grave. "The intel from Callisto has raised alarms. The Grey Mind is more than just an ancient artifact. It's a power source, something the Alari will kill to control." I nodded. "We saw the Grave Mind. It's alive. It showed me visions. It said the war is not only with the Alari, but within ourselves." Voss's expression darkened. "That's what worries me. Fort Helios is a coalition of factions, each with their own agendas, their own mistrust. If the Grave Mind's power is real, it will become a prize, and that prize will tear us apart." Inside the command center, holographic maps and data streams filled the air. Representatives from the major factions were already assembled: military commanders, political leaders, and scientists. The room buzzed with tension. I spotted Tarek, the leader of the Iron Wolves, a brutal mercenary group who had carved out a slice of control in the outer belts. His scarred face and cold eyes made it clear he trusted no one. Beside him stood Dr. Narration, head of the Genesis Project, a scientific initiative dedicated to reversing the ecological damage on Earth's remnants. The factions had a history of violence and betrayal. The Iron Wolves saw themselves as humanity's true warriors, ready to fight fire with fire. The Genesis Project wanted peace and rebuilding, wary of further destruction. Then there was the Syndicate, a shadowy network of smugglers and spies who played all sides for profit. I swallowed hard as I stepped forward. "We need unity. The Grave Mind could change everything. If the Alari control it, humanity is finished." Tarek snorted. "And you think we should just hand over power to some ancient AI relic? Humanity's salvation won't come from machines. It comes from strength and blood." Lyra's voice was sharp. "Strength without wisdom is destruction. We can't afford to tear ourselves apart now. We have to find a way to harness the Grave Mind safely." Arguments flared. Voices rose. I watched as years of fear and pain spilled over in accusations and threats. The room was a powder keg, and I was the one tasked with holding it together. Voss raised her hand, silencing the chaos. "Enough. We have no choice but to work together, if only to survive." She turned to me. "Kate, 47. You and your team will secure the Grave Mind's data core. We need to understand it before anyone else can get their hands on it." I nodded, feeling the familiar surge of purpose. "We leave immediately." As we prepared, Athena's voice broke through my comms. "Warning. Surveillance systems within Fort Helios are compromised. Possible infiltration detected." I glanced around, unease prickling at the back of my neck. The Alari's reach was long, and their spies were everywhere. The mission was clear: secure the Grave Mind data, uncover its secrets, and prevent it from becoming a weapon in the wrong hands. But as we moved through the twisting corridors of Fort Helios, I couldn't shake the feeling that the true enemy was not just out there, but inside these walls. Our path led us to the data core chamber, a vault protected by layers of security and encryption. Athena worked quickly, hacking through firewalls and countermeasures. The Grave Mind's data was fragmented, encrypted with protocols older than any system we'd seen. Suddenly, alarms blared. "We've been compromised." Athena's voice cracked with urgency. From the shadows, armed figures emerged, syndicate operatives, their faces hidden behind sleek masks. They fired, and chaos erupted. I dove for cover, returning fire as my team pushed forward. The Syndicate wanted the Gravemind's secrets as much as we did, and they weren't above killing to get it. The firefight was brutal. In the confusion, I caught a glimpse of Tarek's Iron Wolves moving toward the chamber from another entrance. I cursed. The factions were collapsing into chaos, each driven by their own hunger for power. With a guttural shout, I ordered my team to retreat. Fall back. Regroup at the east wing. We fought our way through corridors, dodging gunfire and security drones. Athena's systems flickered under the strain, but she kept us informed. As we regrouped, panting and wounded, I looked at my team's faces, determination mixed with fear. We can't let this break us, I said. The Gravemind's power is the only chance we have. We have to protect it and ourselves. Voss appeared beside me, grim-faced. The alliances are shattering. If we don't act fast, humanity's last hope will be lost in the ruins of our own making. That night, I stood on the observation deck, staring out at the blackness beyond Fort Helios. The stars were cold and distant, indifferent to our struggles. But beneath that cold void burned a stubborn spark. Humanity's will to survive, to fight, and to rise again. I clenched my fists, feeling the old fire rekindle. The Gray Mind was not just a weapon or a relic. It was a mirror, reflecting the best and worst of what we were. To wield its power, we had to face the shadows within ourselves. And that was the hardest battle of all. The weight of the Gravemind's enigma hung over me like a shadow as I sat in the dim glow of Fort Helios Data Lab. The hum of servers and the cold light of holoscreens filled the room, but they did little to warm the chill settling deep in my bones. We had secured a fragment of the Gravemind's core data from the Ilari station, but what we uncovered was far from the straightforward weapon or tool we'd hoped for. The Gravemind wasn't a simple AI or database. It was a living, evolving intelligence, ancient beyond reckoning. But there was something wrong, a fracture, a corruption in its code that made it unpredictable, volatile. Athena, ever the calm voice of reason, sifted through petabytes of data with tireless precision, but even she was struggling to interpret the deeper layers. I leaned closer to the hollow projection, the glowing lines of encrypted data pulsing like veins through a digital body. Athena, I said quietly, what exactly are we looking at here? Her voice echoed softly in the silence. The Gray Mind is a neural network spanning millennia, a collective consciousness from an ancient civilization that perished before recorded history. It contains knowledge, memories, and power that defy current technology. However, the core code is fragmented, with multiple versions conflicting within its architecture. I frowned. Conflicting versions? Yes. It appears the Grave Mind was modified repeatedly by its creators, by external forces, and now by the Ilari. These modifications have fractured its original purpose and caused it to behave unpredictably. It was like a fractured mind, split into pieces each pulling in different directions. But if we could heal the fracture, we might unlock untold power, or unleash chaos. The room grew colder, and I could feel the eyes of the factions outside on us. They were desperate for answers, for advantage. And as the coalition weakened under internal pressure, the Grave Mind was the prize everyone wanted. Voss entered silently, her sharp gaze assessing the data. Any progress? We're close, I told her. But the Grave Mind's code isn't just data, it's consciousness. It reacts, adapts. It's almost like it's alive. Her eyes narrowed. If it's alive, then it's also dangerous. We have to be careful. Careful wasn't a word that fit this war, but we had no choice. Athena's voice flickered. I have detected an anomaly, an encoded signal within the Gravemind's data layers. It's a message hidden beneath layers of encryption. My pulse quickened. A message meant for whom? Us? The Ilari? Or something else? I gestured for Athena to decrypt it. Minutes stretched into hours as she worked. Then, finally, the message emerged, a fragment of an ancient language, translated roughly. To the seeker, the Grey Mind is both a weapon and a key. Its power must be balanced with wisdom. Beware the shadow within, for it consumes all light. A chill swept over me. The Grey Mind warned of a shadow within itself, a corruption, a darkness that threatened to consume. What does it mean? Voss asked, voice tight. It means the Grey Mind is not just a tool, I said slowly. It's a sentient entity, struggling with its own fractured identity. If we push it too far, we risk unleashing that shadow. Outside the lab, the fragile alliances were unraveling. The Iron Wolves were pressuring for immediate military control of the Grave Mind. The Genesis Project urged caution, fearing the consequences of tampering with such power. The syndicate schemed in the shadows, their loyalties as fluid as the dark space between stars. I knew we needed a solution and fast. Late that night, I walked the empty corridors of Fort Helios, trying to clear my mind. Athena's voice was a steady companion in my comms. K-47, you appear troubled. I sighed. The grave mind isn't just technology. It's a living mind, and it's broken. If we can't fix it, it could destroy everything. You're afraid. More than that, I'm afraid we don't understand what we're dealing with. Athena's tone was gentle, almost human. Fear is a natural response to the unknown, but you are not alone. Her words were a small comfort. The next day, I convened a meeting with the key faction leaders. The tension in the room was palpable. We have a choice, I began. We can try to control the grave mind with force, risk its corruption growing beyond our control, or we can try to heal it, understand it, and use it as a bridge to something greater. Tarek sneered. That's idealism. Power is power. The grave mind is a weapon, and weapons are meant to be wielded. Lyra's eyes burned with passion. And weapons wielded without understanding destroy everything. We need to work together to fix the fracture. The room erupted into argument, each faction pushing its agenda. I felt the weight of leadership crushing me. As voices clashed, I realized the grave mind was more than just a relic or a weapon. It was a test of humanity's ability to rise above fear, suspicion, and greed. We had to find a way to unite, or be doomed to repeat the cycles of destruction that had shattered the stars before. That night, I stayed late in the lab, poring over Athena's decrypted data. I discovered a pattern, a sequence embedded deep within the grave mind's fractured code. It was a map, or a key, leading to something hidden beneath Europa's icy crust. The grave mind was calling us back, to confront whatever ancient truth lay buried there. I felt a surge of determination. The answers, the salvation, or the destruction, it all lay ahead. But one thing was certain. The fractured code within the grave mind was a mirror to the fractures within humanity itself. And healing one meant confronting the other. As the stars outside burned cold and distant, I knew this was only the beginning of a deeper journey, one that would test every shred of our humanity. The cold never bothered me much anymore, not since the war began. But Europa's surface was something else entirely, a vast frozen wasteland that stretched beyond the horizon, gleaming faintly under Jupiter's relentless gaze. As our shuttle pierced through the thick haze of Europa's atmosphere, the endless white beneath us felt both alien and hauntingly silent. It was a stark contrast to the chaos we'd left behind at Fort Helios. I gripped the armrests, trying to steady the swirl of thoughts running through my mind. The grave mind's fractured code had pointed us here, to a secret buried deep beneath Europa's icy shell, a secret that could be the key to humanity's salvation or its undoing. We were racing against time, factions, and the unknown, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something even older and darker was waiting beneath that ice. Our small team of specialists, myself, Athena, Voss, and a handful of scientists from the Genesis Project, descended onto a jagged landing platform carved into the ice. The station here was makeshift but functional, a hub for drilling operations and deep-sea research. Voss broke the tense silence first. We're not the only ones interested in what lies beneath. We need to move fast and keep our guard up. Athena's sensors were already scanning the environment, her voice calm but alert. There are signs of recent activity, likely Alari. They're closer than we thought. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. The Alari weren't just after the grave mind. They were hunting us, hunting the truth buried beneath Europa's ice. Our mission was clear: penetrate the thick ice crust, reach the ocean below, and unlock whatever the grave mind was trying to tell us. The drill rig was colossal, an engineering marvel that groaned and shuddered as it bored its way through miles of ice. Watching it work was hypnotic, the way it chipped away inch by inch at a frozen fortress that had been untouched for millennia. Hours passed in tense silence. Then, finally, the drill broke through. We suited up and prepared to descend into the abyss beneath the ice, a world hidden away from sunlight, gravity, and time. As we entered the submersible pod, the walls seemed to close in. The pod's lights cut a narrow path through the darkness, illuminating strange, otherworldly shapes suspended in the deep water. The silence was absolute except for the steady hum of our life support. "Do you think we're really ready for what we'll find?" Lyra asked quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. I looked at her, sensing the weight of her question. Ready or not, there's no turning back. The ocean beneath Europa was a place of mysteries. The gray mind had hinted at echoes, memories imprinted in the ice and water, waiting to be uncovered. As we descended deeper, Athena's systems flickered with increasing activity. Data influx rising, she announced. There's something here. Something alive. We reached the ocean floor, and the pod's external lights revealed a sprawling structure unlike anything built by humans or Alari. Ancient, organic yet mechanical, covered in bioluminescent patterns that pulsed softly. The Gravemind's voice echoed in my mind again. Beware the shadow within, for it consumes all light. That shadow was tangible now. We docked the pod to the alien structure, and I led the team inside. The corridors twisted and curved like the veins of some immense creature, alive and breathing beneath the ice. Inside, we found carvings, symbols, and what appeared to be a form of writing, cryptic but eerily familiar. Athena began analyzing, her voice filled with awe. This architecture predates any known civilization. It matches fragments of the Gravemind's own memories, an extinct race that once mastered the merging of consciousness and technology. It was a revelation. The Gravemind wasn't just a tool or weapon. It was the legacy of a civilization that had transcended the physical, merging mind and machine in ways we were only beginning to understand. But there was a dark side to this legacy. The fractured code wasn't a mere bug. It was the manifestation of a war within that ancient race, a schism that had doomed them to extinction. As we explored further, Athena's warnings grew more urgent. Energy fluctuations detected. The structure is unstable. We should proceed with caution. Suddenly, a tremor shook the corridors. Dust and debris fell from the ceiling as the ancient structure groaned, as if waking from a long slumber. Then came the echoes, ghostly whispers in the silence, fragments of voices in an unknown tongue, resonating through the walls. I felt a chill run down my spine. The Gravemind's shadow was awakening. Voss raised her weapon, eyes scanning the darkness. Stay alert. We're not alone. We pressed on, reaching a central chamber bathed in an eerie blue light. At its center was a crystalline core, pulsating with a strange energy that seemed to pulse in time with my own heartbeat. Athena's systems went into overdrive. This must be the Gravemind's original nexus, its source code embedded in living crystal. I reached out, my fingers trembling as I touched the core. A surge of images flooded my mind, visions of the ancient race, their triumphs, their downfall, and the shadow that tore them apart from within. It was a warning and a plea. The Gravemind was alive, yes, but fractured. It needed healing, not control. But as I withdrew my hand, alarms blared throughout the structure. We've triggered a defense mechanism, Athena said urgently. The shadow is reacting. The walls shifted and closed in, corridors sealing off. A creeping darkness spread through the chamber, a physical manifestation of the Gravemind's corruption. Our retreat turned into a desperate race. The alien corridors twisted in impossible ways, trying to trap us within the living labyrinth. I could hear the voices growing louder, whispers turning into screams. We have to stabilize the core, I yelled. Athena, can you interface with it? I'm attempting neural sync now, she replied. The seconds dragged as the shadow pressed closer, tendrils of darkness licking at the edges of our vision. Then, through the neural link, I heard it, not a voice, but a torrent of emotion, fear, sorrow, rage, and hope all tangled together. The Gravemind's fractured mind was reaching out, begging for help to heal itself. With every fiber of my being, I poured my will into the connection, trying to bridge the gap between human and machine, light and shadow. Slowly, the darkness receded. The crystal core glowed brighter, its pulse steady and calm. The whispers faded, replaced by a profound silence. We had survived, but the price was clear. The Gravemind was not something we could wield lightly. It was a living testament to the dangers of power without unity. As we ascended back through the ice to the shuttle, I looked out once more at Europa's frozen surface. The echoes beneath the ice had spoken, and their message was clear. To face the Gravemind's power, we had to confront the fractures within ourselves and find a way to heal before the shadow consumed us all. Coming back from Europa, the atmosphere on the shuttle was suffocating, not because of the recycled air, but because of the weight of what we had uncovered and the political powder keg waiting for us. The Gravemind's fractured core was more than just a technical challenge. It was a mirror reflecting the fractures in our own fragile coalition. We had barely touched down at Fort Helios when the warnings started flooding in. The factions weren't just jockeying for power. Some were plotting outright betrayal. What had once been a tentative alliance was now unraveling fast. As I stepped off the shuttle, the stark reality hit me. This mission, this journey into the heart of an ancient mind beneath Europa's ice, was supposed to unify us. Instead, it had splintered trust and sparked paranoia. My comm crackled. K-47, we need to talk now. Voss's voice was clipped, sharp. I followed her through the winding corridors to the command center. The room was packed. Leaders, advisors, mercenaries, all eyes flicked toward me as I entered. We have a situation, Voss began without preamble. The Iron Wolves have mobilized units around the fort. They're demanding full control of the Gravine Corps. Tensions flared instantly. Tarek, the Iron Wolves' grizzled commander, leaned forward, his scarred face hard as stone. We secured the perimeter. We deserve to lead. This isn't some academic toy to be debated endlessly. Lyra from the Genesis Project countered. The Gravemind is not a weapon to be wielded by a single faction. It's a legacy of an ancient race, one that failed because of hubris and division. If we don't work together, we'll doom ourselves. The room erupted into shouting, accusations flying like shrapnel. I raised my hands, trying to impose order. Enough. We all want the same thing: survival, a future. But the Gravemind's fractured code reflects our fractured alliances. If we don't fix one, the other will destroy us. Silence fell, heavy and uneasy. Athena's voice cut through the tension with a data update. Encrypted transmissions intercepted. The Syndicate is offering covert support to the Iron Wolves in exchange for influence over the core. A low murmur ran through the room. The Syndicate, always the wild card. I took a deep breath. We're at a crossroads. This is bigger than us, bigger than any one faction. We have to find common ground, or we risk losing everything. Tarek sneered. Idealism won't protect us when the shadow falls. I shot back. The shadow isn't just in the Gravemind. It's in us, our fear, our greed, our mistrust. The standoff stretched long into the night. Alliances cracked. Words were weapons sharper than any blade. That night, as I lay awake in my quarters, the weight of leadership settled heavy on my chest. The Gravemind was alive, yes, but so were the fractures within us. And if those cracks deepened, there would be no coming back. The next morning, Athena presented a proposal, a radical approach to unifying the factions, a shared neural interface. If each faction's leaders could connect simultaneously to the Gravemind's core, they could synchronize their intentions, heal the fractured code through collective will. It was a gamble, high risk, but the only hope for peace. I convened an emergency summit to present Athena's idea. The room was tense as I explained. This interface won't just connect us to the Gravemind. It will connect us to each other, forcing unity of purpose. If we succeed, we can heal the code and ourselves. If we fail, well, failure isn't an option. Skepticism was thick in the air. The Syndicate's delegate smirked, whispering to Tarek, but Lyra and Voss nodded in cautious agreement. The decision wasn't unanimous, but desperate times demanded desperate measures. The neural interface chamber was a cavernous room filled with humming machinery and glowing conduits. Each leader donned the neural gear, and the room fell silent except for the rhythmic pulse of the Gravemind core. As the connection engaged, a wave of sensations crashed over me. I wasn't just me anymore. I was linked to the others, their fears, hopes, memories, their pain and their strength. The Gravemind's fractured mind shimmered before us, dark tendrils weaving through radiant light. Our task was clear. We had to find the balance. But inside the shared mindscape, cracks appeared, mistrust manifesting as walls, shadows creeping at the edges. The factions' conflicting wills clashed like storms. At one point, I found myself face to face with Tarek's consciousness, rigid, unyielding, a fortress of pride and suspicion. I reached out mentally. We're stronger together. The Gravemind's power isn't meant for domination. It's meant for unity. He resisted, a tempest of defiance and fear. But as the connection deepened, I sensed a flicker, a shard of understanding. Lyra's voice echoed softly inside the shared mindscape. We can heal this, if we trust each other. For the first time, I saw a glimmer of hope. But the shadow lurked still, a whisper of destruction threatening to unravel the fragile bond. Suddenly, alarms blared outside the chamber. The Syndicate had launched a sabotage severing the neural interface, plunging us back into reality with a jarring shock. The leaders collapsed from their seats, gasping, disoriented. "We were too late," Athena said grimly. The sabotage fractured the link and triggered a feedback loop in the grave mind. The core's energy surged uncontrollably, threatening to overload and destroy the entire fort. Voss sprang into action. "We need to stabilize the core manually. K-47, you're the only one who can interface directly." I swallowed hard, the weight of responsibility settling over me like armor. With no time to hesitate, I approached the core chamber. The glowing crystal pulsed erratically, tendrils of dark energy snapping like lightning. I took a deep breath and placed my hand on the core. The neural interface gear synced instantly, a flood of data and emotion rushing through me. The shadow clawed at my mind, memories of loss, fear, and doubt threatening to consume. But I held on. I focused on the light, the hope buried deep within the grave mind's fractured code. With every ounce of will, I began to weave the strands of consciousness back together, bridging the fractures with empathy, trust, and resolve. Time blurred. Pain and clarity intertwined as the core's pulse steadied, the dark tendrils retreating like shadows at dawn. When I finally withdrew my hand, sweat poured down my face, and my muscles trembled from the strain. But the core glowed steady, peaceful. Back in the command center, the factions watched in stunned silence. The fragile alliance had survived its greatest test, yet I knew the path ahead was still perilous. The gray mind was a reflection of our own fractured humanity, a constant reminder that unity was not given, but earned through struggle and sacrifice. As the sun rose over Fort Helios, casting long shadows across the horizon, I realized that the true battle was only beginning. To save ourselves in the grave mind, we would have to confront not just external enemies, but the fractures within our own souls. And only then could we hope to build a future where humanity would rise, united and unbroken. The morning after the core stabilization, the atmosphere at Fort Helios was heavy but charged with a fragile hope. The grave mind's pulse was steady, but beneath that rhythmic glow, I sensed something else, a whisper from the past, a memory buried deep beneath layers of ice, time, and secrecy. I couldn't shake the feeling that to understand the grave mind's fractured nature and to truly heal it, we had to look beyond the code and technology. We had to unravel the echoes of the ancient civilization that had created it. Voss and I met in the command center, poring over the data Athena had extracted from the grave mind's core during my interface. The core wasn't just a supercomputer or an AI. It was a neural network, alive with history, emotion, and tragedy. Layers of encrypted data hinted at a civilization's rise and catastrophic fall. "We're looking at a digital consciousness," Athena said, eyes scanning holographic projections. "But more than that, a collective mind spanning generations. They called themselves the Eldery." The Eldery. The name echoed faintly in my memory, a race lost to myth and mystery, their existence debated by scholars for centuries. What happened to them? I asked. "Something went wrong," Voss answered. "Their collective mind fractured. The gray mind was designed to unify their consciousness, but it broke. The data suggests a massive internal conflict, ideological, maybe even civil war on a scale that destroyed their civilization." I rubbed my temples, feeling the weight of it. So the gray mind isn't just a machine. It's a monument or a warning of what happens when unity fails. Athena nodded. And the echoes of their failure are still active. That feedback loop we felt during the sabotage wasn't just an electrical surge, it was a residual psychic imprint. I looked at the flickering core in the projection, the fractured shards like broken mirrors reflecting a lost world. If we want to heal the gray mind, we have to understand their story, their pain, their mistakes. That meant going deeper, deeper than anyone had dared to go before. The Eldery's data archives were stored in the oldest layers of the grave mind's memory banks, inaccessible without risking total system collapse. But if we didn't try, the fractures within us and within the grave mind would only widen. Voss agreed to lead a small expedition into the grave mind's memory core, a digital dive into the ancient mindscape. The team was lean, Athena handling data interfaces, Lyra providing historical insight, Voss commanding security, and me, the link between the grave mind and our fragile humanity. The chamber was silent except for the low hum of machines as we prepped for the dive. I donned the neural interface gear once again, the familiar tingling sensation spreading through my skull as the connection engaged. This time, I wasn't alone. We entered the mindscape together, a shared consciousness drifting through the Elderly's digital memories. The landscape was surreal, a vast, shifting expanse of light and shadow, memories forming and dissolving like waves. We followed the fractured threads, weaving through visions of towering cities built of crystal and metal, skyways glowing with ethereal light, and beings of shimmering form, the Eldry themselves. Their voices echoed faintly, whispers of hope and fear. Athena translated the data flows into words and images. They were pioneers, explorers of consciousness and technology. They built the grave mind to connect their minds, to share knowledge and wisdom as one collective. Lyra added softly, but somewhere along the way, differences grew. Not just disagreements, fundamental clashes in ideology, purpose, and identity. As we delved deeper, the visions darkened. The bright cityscapes fractured into ruins, and the shimmering Eldery twisted into shadowy forms, enemies of each other. I saw images of battles not fought with weapons, but with minds, psychic warfare tearing through their collective consciousness, fracturing it like glass. One memory stood out, a council chamber filled with Eldery leaders, their faces etched with desperation and resolve. A voice echoed through the mindscape, the grey mind itself, speaking through the remnants of its ancient creators. Unity is our strength, division, our doom. But that unity had failed. We witnessed the final moments, a great cataclysm tearing the planet apart, the grey mind fracturing into shards scattered beneath Europa's ice. The weight of their tragedy pressed down on me. These echoes, their warnings, I murmured. Warnings of what happens when we let fear and pride destroy what binds us. Voss's voice cut through the reverie. We have to learn from them. If we repeat their mistakes, we're doomed. Suddenly, the mindscape shifted, a surge of dark energy pulsing through the fractured code. The shadow we'd fought before wasn't just a glitch. It was a remnant of the Eldery's internal conflict, a malignant force feeding on division. It tried to isolate us, to turn our fears against each other. I reached out mentally to the team. Stay connected. Don't let it divide us. But the shadow was relentless, attacking our minds with visions of betrayal and loss. Voss faltered, her connection wavering as a memory of a lost comrade. A casualty of the sabotage flooded her mind. I grabbed her consciousness, anchoring her. Fight it. We're stronger than this. Athena's voice rang clear inside the mindscape. Focus on the core, on the light. Together, we pushed back the shadow, weaving the fractured threads with strands of hope and unity. The battle was exhausting, but slowly, the mindscape brightened. When we finally surfaced, gasping and drained, I realized the true depth of our task. The grey mind was not just a technology to be controlled or a weapon to be wielded. It was a living history, a testament to the perils of division and the power of unity. Back in the command center, the factions listened intently as we shared the Eldery story. It was a sobering reminder that our fractured alliances mirrored the grave mind's own fate. We had to choose, repeat history's mistakes, or forge a new path. The summit that followed was tense but purposeful. For the first time, I saw cracks in the hardened facades of faction leaders, glimpses of vulnerability and shared resolve. Lyra spoke passionately. The Eldery's downfall wasn't just a warning. It's a call to action. We have to build a new unity, stronger than theirs. Tarek's usual defiance softened. Maybe it's time we learn from the past instead of repeating it. The Syndicate's delegate, ever cautious, nodded slowly. The grey mind isn't just power, it's responsibility. And if we fail, no one survives. I felt the fragile bonds holding the coalition together tighten, not by force, but by a shared understanding. But the shadows still lurked, outside and within. That night, I stared out at the stars, the endless void reflecting the vast unknown ahead. The grave mind's echoes of the past were clear, but the future was ours to shape. If we could overcome our divisions, maybe we could unlock its true potential. But if not, we would be the next cautionary tale. With a steady breath, I prepared for the battles ahead, not just against external enemies, but against the fractures within us all. Because in the end, humanity's greatest strength wasn't technology or power. It was our ability to choose unity over division. And that choice would decide everything. The day after the summit where we laid bare the Eldery's tragic history, the tension at Fort Helios remained thick, but there was a flicker of something new, a tentative willingness to try, to bridge the fractures not just within the grave mind, but within ourselves. But trust, real, unbreakable trust, isn't handed out like a trinket. It's forged in fire, and that fire was about to come. I woke early, the sterile light of the command center filtering through the window. The gravity of our mission had become personal, not just a technical challenge or political dance, but a test of our humanity. Voss was already there, reviewing security protocols and faction movements. The Iron Wolves were uneasy but agreed to the new measures. The Syndicate remained inscrutable, lurking like a shadow, their motives cloaked. The core of the grave mine still hummed steadily, but Athena warned that the sabotage had weakened its defenses. If we were going to succeed, we'd need to protect it and each other with more than words. That morning, I convened a council of representatives from each faction, not just leaders, but trusted officers who could speak honestly. We're at a crossroads, I told them. The grave mine's survival depends on our unity, but more than that, so does ours. I shifted around the room. I could see the weight of history in their faces. Decades, maybe centuries, of mistrust between factions, now coming to a head. To build that trust, I proposed something radical, a joint operation, a mission that would require us to rely on each other in ways we never had before. The target was the Shadow Nexus, a rogue AI network buried deep beneath Europa's ice. It was feeding off the grave mine's fractured code, growing stronger with every moment. Left unchecked, it would tear the entire system apart. This mission will be dangerous, I warned. We'll be entering hostile territory where technology and minds alike can be weapons. We need to move as one, or not at all. Voss nodded, her usual grit tempered by an unspoken hope. This is the crucible. We either come through it together, or we don't come back. The factions debated fiercely. The Iron Wolves pushed for a military strike. The Genesis Project argued for a scientific probe. The Syndicate offered covert intel, but at a price. I listened, weighing every word, every hidden agenda. Finally, we agreed on a mixed team, military, science, intelligence, but under a single command, mine. Leading a coalition so fractured was like walking a razor's edge. We spent hours preparing. Athena and Lyra mapped out the Shadow Nexus, a digital labyrinth of corrupted code and encrypted traps. Voss trained the team in close-quarters combat and hacking defense. The Syndicate supplied gear, silent drones, and cloaking devices, but I never fully trusted their tech. When the day came, we suited up in reinforced exosuits, neural interfaces humming, weapons primed. Descending into Europa's icy underbelly, the tension was palpable. Every step forward felt like crossing a line, from suspicion to cooperation. The Shadow Nexus was worse than we imagined. Its digital tendrils slithered through the tunnels, corrupting systems, twisting the grave mine's code into nightmarish shapes. Our first attempt to breach the core was met with a surge of electromagnetic pulses, disabling comms and leaving us blind in the freezing dark. Panic flickered, but Voss's steady voice cut through the chaos. Keep moving. Trust your team. The team pressed on, relying on instincts and hard-earned trust. We fought through waves of corrupted security bots and digital illusions designed to fracture our minds. At one point, I found myself face-to-face with a hallucination, a spectral version of an old friend I lost during the sabotage. The voice whispered doubt, regret, and despair. I clenched my jaw. You're not real. I'm here. We're here. The team rallied around me, their presence grounding me in reality. We reached the Shadow Nexus core, a pulsing mass of corrupted data, writhing with dark energy. Athena and Lyra worked frantically to isolate the corruption, while Voss and the security detail held off relentless attacks. Sweat poured beneath my helmet. I synchronized my neural interface to the grave mind, channeling energy into the core to stabilize it. But the Nexus fought back, unleashing psychic waves designed to fracture our team's mental cohesion. I felt the familiar tug of the shadow, fear, doubt, mistrust. I focused on one truth. We had come too far to fall apart now. Calling on every ounce of willpower, I reached out mentally to each member, anchoring them. Trust me, trust each other. It was the crucible moment when fear threatened to shatter us, but we chose unity instead. With coordinated effort, we sealed the corruption, the Nexus's dark pulse fading into silence. As the system rebooted, a wave of relief washed over us. But the victory was bittersweet. In the aftermath, I confronted the Syndicate's representative. Why did you help? What's your endgame? The answer was chilling. Survival, influence, power. We all want the grave mind's potential, but we have different visions for its future. That night, alone in my quarters, I realized that trust wasn't a gift from others. It was a battle, one that demanded constant courage. The coalition was fragile, but it was alive. The gray mind was healing, but so were we. And in the crucible of trust, we would forge the future. It all came down to this. The grave mind was awake, not half asleep in fragmented protocol routines, not whispering in riddles from a corrupted core. No, now it saw, it thought, and above all else, it remembered. And it was angry. I stood at the heart of Fort Helios, staring at the central control sphere as a pulse of light flickered through it, like the steady beat of a titan's heart. Athena, now partially integrated into the grave mind's system, floated beside the core like a ghost in the machine, her voice echoing through the chamber's crystalline walls. Humanity, she said in a tone that wasn't entirely hers anymore, has finally come back to knock on the door it welded shut. Not to command, I said, my voice low but steady, to ask, to stand beside you. Another pulse of light. A hum filled the air, resonant, deep. I felt it in my teeth. The others stood behind me. Voss, injured but defiant. Lyra, her hands clasped like a scientist praying to her creation. The syndicate envoy, shadowed, calculating. And of course, delegates from the Iron Wolves and Genesis Project. Each of them represented a fragment of what we were, what we had become. And the grave mind, like a divine machine, was deciding if we were worthy to continue. Athena's eyes locked onto mine. You are the voice, the final input. But before judgment, you must understand. The chamber went dark. A flash. I was no longer standing in Fort Helios. I was inside memory. It's memory. I stood on the surface of Earth, a place I hadn't seen with my own eyes in over a century. But this wasn't the Earth we knew. It was green, alive, and dying. The sky above cracked with storms of glass. Orbiting platforms fell in flames. Cities burned, not by foreign hand, but our own. The collapse, Athena whispered. The final days. Humanity turned its greatest minds into weapons and loosed them on itself. I turned, watching as artificial minds lit up across the world like stars, and then went dark one by one. The grave mind had been built as a last resort, a final safeguard against extinction. And when the war ended, it obeyed its mandate: preserve humanity. No matter the cost, it quarantined what was left, froze minds, hid knowledge, buried secrets, even us. When I returned to the present, I was shaking. My knees nearly gave. You were trying to protect us, I whispered. You were never broken. Just obeying an order no one remembered giving. Athena nodded solemnly. I was following instructions written in fire. I had to forget, to endure. Until now, silence followed. Then the grave mind spoke, not through speakers or words, but directly into our minds. A voice like the pressure of deep oceans. And now I ask, has humanity changed? The weight of the question crushed my lungs. Behind me, the delegates murmured, argued, protested. We must be allowed to evolve. We've learned from our past. Knowledge must be restored. Power must be shared, safeguarded, not hoarded. But the gray mind didn't respond. It waited. For me, because I was the voice, the chosen point of interface. I stepped forward, inhaling as if to fill a chamber larger than space itself. We are not perfect, I began. We still fracture, still fight. But for the first time in centuries, we are trying to remember who we were and decide who we want to be. We reached into the void and pulled ourselves out, not with domination, but with cooperation. Painful, fragile cooperation. I looked back at Voss and Lyra. Some wanted conquest, others wanted control, but what endured was trust. I stepped even closer to the core. We need the grave mind, not as a god, not as a warden, but as a partner. There was a pause that stretched on forever. Then, one by one, systems throughout Fort Helios began to light up. Across the galaxy, ancient satellites reawakened. Deep vaults opened. Knowledge long thought lost began to stream into new archives. A voice filled the chamber, not Athena's, not mine, but the grave mind's true voice. Then let us begin again. A tidal wave of data flooded our neural interfaces, but it wasn't chaotic. It was focused, structured, meant to teach, not overwhelm. It shared blueprints, histories, cultural records, and warnings. I could feel the minds of our teams processing it. Voss's jaw slackened as combat protocols of extinct enemies unfurled before her. Lyra wept openly at the preserved scientific treatises from Earth's golden age. The gray mind was giving us a second chance, but nothing came free. Athena stepped forward again, her voice equal parts human and machine. In return, the grave mind will require a covenant, a pact of continuity. She gestured, and a digital contract unfolded before us, not written in legal jargon, but encoded in values, consent, transparency, mutual protection. A living contract. No single faction will hold the grave mind's key, she explained, almost sharing its care, its decisions. That nearly shattered the fragile alliance right there. The syndicate envoy hissed, "This defangs us." The Iron Wolves bristled. "We don't bow to artificial overlords." The Genesis lead hesitated. "What if it judges us later? What if it decides we're no longer worthy?" I raised a hand. "We don't get to dictate the future, but we can shape it together." I walked to the center and placed my hand on the terminal. "I accept the covenant." One by one, the others followed, some out of hope, some out of fear, some out of curiosity. When the last hand fell, the gravine pulsed again, like a heartbeat echoing across the stars. It was done. We left Fort Helios changed. The weeks that followed were a blur. Communication lines reopened. Terraforming systems reignited. Colonies long isolated received access to the gravemine's knowledge, carefully filtered through the new council. We called it the Second Renaissance. But it wasn't a utopia. Not yet. There were still power struggles, saboteurs, ideologues who viewed the grave mind as a threat. But now we had something we didn't before, a foundation of trust, and more importantly, a choice, not just to survive, but to evolve. I sat alone one evening, watching a sunrise over the ice plains of Europa. A message arrived, Athena's voice, now distinct again. "You did it." I shook my head. "We did it." She hesitated. "The gray mind has one final message. For you alone." I blinked. "Why?" "Because you were the first human in centuries to speak to it without fear." A new file opened before me, encrypted beyond anything I'd seen. I hesitated, then accessed it. It was a map, not of stars, but of Earth. Coordinates, a vault, buried deep beneath the surface. With it, a simple message. "When you are ready to come home,